All right. So 7 months ago in Lagos, one of the pharma companies called us and told us they had to do something really painful. They destroyed medicine worth $700,000 in Lagos, one company, and they had to pay NAFDAC, the regulator, to destroy it because you can't throw drugs in the bin, right? Why did that happen? Because companies lack data. The forecasts are wrong, the pricing is wrong, R&D, there's no data to support it, and everyone is just guessing. In fact, we coined the word, we call it guesstimates instead of estimates. So when you look at Africa as a whole, companies are losing money. Pharma companies, consumer healthcare companies, because they don't have data, right? In Africa alone, about $10 billion worth of drugs are thrown away, literally, in the bin and destroyed. Now, when you look at opportunity in terms of what they're losing because they don't have data, that is another $19 billion being lost on the continent. This is not just an African problem alone, it's an emerging market problem. I worked in London, being a director for EMEA in a big data company, and Africa, some part of Latin America, and also some part of Asia was totally dark for us. So what we're doing now in Nigeria, it's a big problem to solve, by the way. So what we do is we aggregate data from everywhere and anywhere, especially real-world data. It took us 9 months to standardize data following WHO standard, but we built an AI system with support with AWS. Now it takes us 20 minutes to do that. In other words, if you look here, you'll see the rough data right there. And when we standardize it, we help companies supply. In our data, we have about 46 million items traded, and we increased it by 3.2 million every quarter. So what's the product? Well, simply the Bloomberg of healthcare. In other words, if you want to go into the market, you understand the disease trend, how to price, what to manufacture, what to forecast, we have the data already for you and easy for you to log in as an annual subscription. We're making progress. We're serving major companies, big pharma, local as well, including consulting firm. And I think one of the most exciting things for us is, even though we built for the private sector, we just discovered recently that this is also a big issue in public health. So we're invited to present last month by IFC, present to IFC, Africa Development Bank, in terms of how data can support local manufacturing in Africa and emerging market. We're not a charity, so we're making money, right? We've increased our MRR from $13,000 to about $33,000, and we're on the path to doing close to about 800 MRR, ARR this year. We're backed by Techstars and an additional 4 VCs that are supporting us. We know how to do this. We've done this before in Europe. I've done this across the UK. I've done this in the US. And we're exporting this capability to Africa. My team is quite experienced. My head of engineering, Teslim, is in the audience. He's a doctor and also a data scientist. I'm a pharmacist, and I have an MBA as well from London Business School. So what are we doing? We're building data that will power the future. 7 out of every 10 people in the world will be from Africa and Asia, yet we don't have data to support them. So join us as we build a new world for emerging market, powering R&D, finance, health insurance with big data. Thank you.
Questions from the stage?
Yeah, I have one. So what's the source of the data? Like, what's the primary source? Is it the customer's data that you're able to analyze, and then you're sort of making predictions based on industry knowledge, or how does it work?
Yeah, so what companies want to know is what happens between the patient and the doctor, the patient and the pharmacist, and the patient and the pharmacist. In other words, the real data. So what we've done is we built an ecosystem where we finance the software to pharmacists, help them get it cheap, and that way we have a data agreement with them, and we sign a contract on what we can access. We're doing the same with health insurance now, and also EMI companies. And we follow ethical procedure. We have data protection certificates for Nigeria and also for the UK as well, because we're regulated by the Information Commissioner Office in the UK.
Okay. And so that software, is it software that you've built that you're selling to the pharmacies at a subsidized rate, or is it software that you're partnering with somebody else and you're kind of more interested in the insights from the data?
So this question is very important. And this is how we've achieved a lot of scale. We are software agnostic, which means we aggregate data from every software possible, because right now, the software space is quite fragmented in Africa. because you have a few softwares that sell to different local areas. So it's very hard to find a national software. So it makes it easier for us to scale by aggregating from many.
Can you tell us a bit more about your sales traction with the various customer segments that you outlined, and also commenting on the pricing of the SaaS, because we've seen this kind of model sometimes are really difficult to sell because there's a lot of price sensitivity.
Yeah, so that's the interesting thing. Pharma is a big margin industry, right? So you have companies that do 70% margin, 60 and 80. In terms of the ticket size, we price about $5,000 to $20,000. Last month, the client did $40,000. So it's quite premium. The pharma companies know it is expensive. And because of that, our unit economics is fantastic, right? And we have a customer lifetime value about $147,000. So it's a very hard data to get. It's hard to clean. It's hard to build analytics. And because of that, we can price premium. Yeah.
And on the traction? So
in terms of the traction, yeah, we've grown 192% versus last year. Our booked ARR, because this is annual subscription, right? So companies will renew the next year. Our booked ARR is about $350,000 now. I will grow that from about $150,000.
And you're already seeing a cycle of renewals?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Just to mention that we also fundraising 800. And right now we have about 650, so we're looking to close very soon.
And the likes of KPMG buying your services as an entity or as a reseller?
They for now use that as an entity, but what we're also doing now is licensing. So we're speaking to organizations that are looking to license the data, but we're also being careful about that so we don't create a competition for ourselves, right? Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about the sales cycle, the cost of customer acquisition, sort of, and what's happened over time? I'm not sure how long you've been running.
So in terms of the sales cycle, so it's not the typical B2B, right? Because there's a huge gap already. Companies don't have data. So every time they wait, they're bleeding, right? When we started, it used to take about 3 months because we needed to convince them that the data was quality. Now we've shortened that to about 2 to 1 month. And they then have annual subscription. And in some cases, we give them like 2-year subscription for a better price. And they'd like to take a deal.
Do you have a sense of, I'm not sure if I'm going to phrase the question the right way, but the kind of percent of the penetration of the data gap that you're actually achieving now?
Yeah.
And where this goes over time?
Yeah, I mean, we're quite scientific about this, right? Because data is about numbers. So what we did at first is to look at what's the sample size we need to achieve a 90% confidence interval in terms of representation. For Nigeria, for pharmacies, for example, we needed about 365 pharmacies out of a total of 6,000 in the country. And now we already have 600 pharmacies, right? So when it comes to that representation and coverage, we have that. However, this year we're looking to add Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, Kenya, and Ghana as well into that mix. Yep.
Have you talked to our portfolio company, M Pharma?
I would love to talk to you, sir.
They've got a few pharmacies.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Who do you see as your competitors?
So we have different competitors. However, for now, we are the only one that provide this, at least in Sub-Saharan Africa, when it comes to multiple data set. But IQVIA is the global leader. They don't actually have to be a competition. They could be a strategic acquirer. So we kind of keep them in view of how we do it. Then we have other players like Capsule in Rwanda, go to Maisha Meds, which sometimes we collaborate with, right? Sometimes it's not worth the competition at some point. But if we're looking at differentiation, we still have the largest data and the most differentiated data still in the space. Yeah.
Ayodeji, thank you very much.